I've been sued. Now what?
Essentially, you have two ways to deal with the lawsuit. So you either litigate, you either go to court and fight it there, which is costly. And that's not the common way to deal with these lawsuits. So the more common approach and what makes sense basically is to settle the case and to negotiate a settlement agreement.
Can you tell me a little bit about what is the incentive behind these lawsuits? What are the plaintiffs really looking for? Do they intend to go through a full trial with each and every defendant? Isn't it also costly to them?
Yeah.
I mean, how does this process work?
Yeah, that's also a great question. It is costly to them, and they have a couple of objectives. So first of all, obviously they want to get settlement payments from the defendant as a condition to sign an agreement and release the hold on the account. So that's number one. And number two, for the defendants that choose to do nothing, not to fight it, not to go to court, not to litigate, and not to settle, they'll get a default judgment. And
what would that?
Yeah.
What's the consequences of a default judgment?
A high amount of damages will be rewarded to the plaintiff, and they can use that with Amazon to say, okay, here's the order we got from court. Now you need to release all the money that's frozen in this person's account to us.
I want to work on a little bit more on the word default.
Yep.
It's a very legal term. It's jargon. What does it mean? Right. It means I lost? It means I gave up? I forfeited? What exactly does default mean?
Well, default basically means they're going to give the plaintiff what they asked for because you made no appearance in court, you did not settle, you did not defend yourself. So the plaintiff will get the damages that they're asking for, and the hold on your seller account will remain, and that's basically what it is.
So let's say I got a default. Worst case scenario, I didn't even realize that I was sued, or I didn't take that email seriously. Maybe I thought it was spam, or who would sue me? Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to do anything. And the money was withdrawn from my account. Is my account suspended? After the withdrawal, is the funds open again? Can I go about my business? Put me in a little bit on the mindset of what's going on with this seller that didn't take this seriously and didn't protect themselves and didn't defend their stance.
This is an approach that some sellers who don't want to continue selling on their store.
Selling that product or selling in general?
Selling in general. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't mind. They just want to walk away from their business. They've lost too much money anyway. The product wasn't successful, and they don't want to continue operating their e-commerce store. So they'll choose to do nothing, and knowing that a default judgment will be awarded against them. And, sometimes they're non-US sellers, so it's harder to come after them, especially if they don't have any funds frozen in their account. It'll be hard to get anything out of them.
Are there other consequences other than the financial weight or the fact that I lost my Amazon business to a seller that's outside of the United States and has this default judgment against them? Are there consequences in the real world? Real world?
Well, theoretically, that option should be available to the plaintiffs. But in theory, it's a very low risk. It's not something that we've seen happen.
What option? What would happen? What can the plaintiffs do?
Well,
so they have this default against them. Now what?
The realistic thing that will happen is that, they'll get whatever's frozen, whatever funds are frozen in your seller account.
And the case closed?
They'll get that, and that'll be it. From our experience, it ends there. So, a question I get a lot is, will I have trouble getting into the U.S.? And so, again, in theory, perhaps, but it's not something that we've seen happen. Usually, with the plaintiff, it ends there, meaning with the funds that are withdrawn from the seller account, and that's it.
So, just to summarize, in theory, a plaintiff that holds a default judgment against the seller has an array of tools, legal tools that
Yeah.
they at their disposal. They can, I don't know, stop you in customs or when you enter, whatever. But that means that they need to put in the effort.
Exactly.
And it's costly to them too. And it's just not worth it usually for them to go after each and every small seller.
Yeah, exactly. Usually with the, many of the defendants are just small-time sellers, so to speak. So just the effort and the amount they'll invest in it, just not worth it.
So I wouldn't recommend a seller to ignore this type of lawsuit, even if they don't have a lot of money, just because, in my opinion, having this, cloud of uncertainty of what would happen in the future with me, I would rather settle it, especially if, like you said, you gave an example of sellers that don't want to continue their Amazon business. Even more, I would say settle, get this over with, and move on with your life. Don't leave this open window of uncertainty, leveraging over your head.
I completely agree. And that's what I would do as well. And you don't want to leave any loose ends. So certainly what I would recommend is to settle, just to have this behind you, and know that it won't come back in the future. I just want to add one more point regarding the default, that even if there was a default judgment issued against you, you can still settle with the plaintiff at that juncture. And sometimes it's even easier to do that after a default has been issued, just because the plaintiff may find it difficult to go after your funds then.
Tell me what happens after you reach a settlement.
Yep.
What's the most common question that you get from sellers?
Mm-hmm.
And what difficulties do they encounter? How did you live past that date of the lawsuit and the settlement?
Mm-hmm.
Does anything change in the way that the seller needs to run their business?
One thing is, usually you won't be able to continue selling the ASIN that was affected by the lawsuit. So the ASIN that's considered to be infringing, usually that will continue to be suppressed. And
is a license ever an option in these settlement agreements, or they're not interested in providing you with a license,
sometimes,
making it legit?
Yeah, sometimes. For example, when a utility patent is involved, the plaintiff will sometimes want or insist on a licensing agreement rather than just a one-off settlement payment. So they can get paid as well for each unit that you sell going forward. Mm-hmm. So that will be their incentive to allow you to release the ASIN to you, and that you can continue selling products under the ASIN.
Yeah. It's more likely to get a license for a patent versus a trademark, because a trademark also kind of has some sort of endorsement from the brand or some sort of association of approval.
Yeah, exactly.
And brands don't want to reward sellers that infringe their trademark with that association.
Yeah,
I would assume.
That's right. That's right. A lot of IP owners or trademark owners don't want their brand diluted by, what they see as inferior products being sold under their trademark. They don't want their brand associated with that product.
How long does this process usually take before I can put it behind me? If I get a lawsuit, I'm a seller, what do I do? I decide to fight it, or I decide to not ignore it, which is the wise choice. I contact an attorney. Now what? It
really depends on each case. And, some cases can be settled quickly. It also depends how responsive the attorney on the other side is. Their objective, the plaintiff's objective, is also to settle. They usually want a quick settlement as well, but it also depends on the settlement amount. This usually depends on how many units you've sold of the infringing product, assuming it is infringing. And it's important, by the way, that the first step when you enter in negotiations is to receive all the information about the lawsuit, meaning the complaint, to see what IP is asserted as being infringing, to look to analyze the product and to see if there is an actual infringement.